Welcome to Live on Location TV. I'm here with some very interesting people who live on the island of Ibiza who have something to say about this year's happenings with the whole COVID-19 situation, should I say. And we're going to call this Covi-nterview. It's a bit cheesy, isn't it? But my name's Roberto. We are here with Ian Kennedy to my left. Oh, and some pieces of papers just flew. That's all right. At least everyone knows that we're live. There you go, mate. Right, we have Ian Kennedy to my left. Hello, mate. You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks.
All good. And we have Peacharoo.
Hola.
Hola. And we have Dave Butler. How are you doing?
Hello.
Thanks very much for coming in such short notice, by the way.
No problem.
Less than 24 hours and you're here. So we're just going to... the purpose of this really is to just sort of come up with some really interesting points, I think. And I'm hoping to educate myself, really, with everyone's opinions and points that they want to put across. Because I think this year is very, very challenging for some people and quite frankly for everyone. I think it's very confusing to what's going on and why it's going on. And I just think it would be a really interesting conversation to have with some intelligent folk from the island. So we're going to start with there's four bits to this. I'm going to start with round one. Actually, we do need a countdown for later on. So I think someone's might be able to get the countdown for later on. Maybe, but see how that goes. Right. So round one. This is the introduction. So I've introduced everyone. I did send you all a couple of questions to prepare your answers, which I thought would be an interesting start, which would be sort of like introducing yourself and what you believe in and what you think of the current situation. So I suppose without further ado, the question I wanted people to answer was, what do you believe, obviously this is in regards to everything this year, what do you believe and why should people believe in what you are saying? And I'd like Ian Kennedy to answer that first, please.
Okay. All right. First up. First off, when you asked me this question, I thought I need to kind of qualify why you would ask me. Mm-hmm. I want to sort of make clear I don't have any particular personal bias on this issue. There's no agenda. I don't have any kind of family bereavement or any. I mean, I do have a business that has suffered, so I guess if anything, I would be anti any kind of restrictions. Mm-hmm. The other thing I wanted to say is that when I talk about believing something, I do believe it's quite contextual. I've actually changed my mind twice about this whole situation, and I'll explain potentially a little bit about that later. Yeah. On top of that, this is a situation where information is key, and the source of that information is what usually leads people to some kind of belief. Mm-hmm. Whether or not I believe what they believe is kind of irrelevant. Yeah. But I do believe personally that there are dangerous sources of information and some source of information that I find more reliable. Yeah. I try to become as informed as I can.
Yeah, see both sides.
I have a science degree and I worked as a teacher for many years. So I don't like to jump on a trend, if you like. I like to do my research and try and
which is dangerous in itself, really, when you jump on a.
It can be, yeah. It can be. I think if enough people do. Mm-hmm. So I mean, just to get down to the basis of it, when I first heard about COVID, I was in Valencia. I saw a news report about the Wuhan wet market and this virus breaking out. And initially, I was very, very sure that this was there was something quite nefarious going on. That I wasn't particularly trusting of the mainstream media view. I thought I happened to know at the time that there was an institute of virology in Wuhan. I can't remember how I knew, but I just put two and two together, and I thought something stinks here. Yeah. As weeks went past, we came back to Ibiza, and then early March the lockdown happened. I started to change my mind, and I was more prepared to believe that this was similar to SARS. This was a virus that was born in, basically bat source that had passed through various different animals and the bushmeat trade, and this was not a kind of
which would say it was sort of a legitimate
Well, legitimate in so much that the same ignorance, the same issues that surrounded SARS were at work here. After, obviously, the mutations of the virus and lots of other things that have happened in the last 6 months, I'm now of a belief that the virus, there's a thing called the lab leak hypothesis, which is what I believe in at the moment, which is that whether it was deliberate or accidental, that this was a virus that had been worked on, has some form of engineering in it or testing in it, that once it had been released into the population had created the surprising mutations and the different profiles of symptoms. So that's my belief. I don't have a strong belief as to whether it was deliberate or accidental, and I think that question's ongoing. I think that needs to be the thing that people focus on.
Yeah, because I suppose people are... Thanks for that, by the way. I totally get where you're coming from, and I think the problem we have is, like you said, like you touched on at the end there, is that it's ongoing. And I think the reason it's ongoing is because no one can seem to yet, or can seem to convince people that their fact is fact. So I think everyone's looking at lots of different things that they seem to think are fact, with a lot of help from the internet, should I say, nowadays, and then people don't know where to turn to. And then I think we had a conversation the other day, and we touched on that in a state of crisis in someone's head, whether it be heartbreak, whether it be financial loss, whether it be a bereavement, you always want to latch on. You always want to blame something, don't you? You want something to blame and something to shout at, sort of thing.
A scapegoat for whatever's going on.
Yeah, and I think people, it's very easy nowadays to latch on to someone's opinion, really, especially if they're close friends with you, or if they're sort of very apparent on social media, should I say? Peacharoo, how were you?
Very nice, thank you.
Good, thanks for coming again, mate, and
You're
thanks
welcome,
for the
mate.
awesome present you bought us earlier on, which is a lovely little blanket.
It is in return for your awesome present last year.
Last year.
Pantalones.
Yes, mate, the hippie pants.
Hippie pants.
I think it was 2 years ago.
I've lost a little bit of weight now, so they kind of hang around my knees.
Oh, right.
But they're still very much loved. I wear them as a scarf at night in bed.
Wicked, mate. That's class. Well, I suppose I'd like to ask you the same question, obviously, because we get know a bit about everyone here. So I'll ask the same question again. Peacharoo, what do you believe, and why should people believe in what you are saying?
I would like to, again, thank you for this opportunity. I'll back up what Ian said as well, is that my beliefs are in a state of constant change, in that nothing ever is legitimate, is solid in my head. I've got quite a speculative frame of mind, so even though what I talk about now or in the future might be my point of view at this moment in time, the formation of receiving the information is constantly evolving. And the information that we get and the information that we're subject to is, for me, I see it's down to my intuition. I open up the pages where I'm aligned, and I see information which I see is really important. I don't think it really matters personally about how it all started. There's lots of theories surrounding this, and you'll never really get to the bottom of it until the proof is released as to what's going on. I mean, we know that this virus infects people, and it's caused us all a lot of stress. It's caused us all a lot of limitations on our freedom. And this is what every single one of us as humanity is suffering from. This suppression and this lack of freedom that we've got. Even before this. We live in a society where we have to pay taxes to live. What? We have to pay taxes to live? Is this right? Not only do we have to pay taxes, but we have to pay fines surrounding laws that have been made illegally. Now, this is all new information to me. In the last couple of weeks, the source of my investigations over my lifetime of being subjective and looking at stuff has made me stumble across common law. And common law is the biggest evolution of my being that I've had. I think I knew it existed a few years ago, but never really took any interest in it. Common law governs everyone. Common law governs every human on the entire planet. And this also it governs legal legislative law, which has been created under the law that we live under as human beings on this planet.
As the ones we know of.
As the ones we know. As everyone's born as a male or a female human being on this planet. But there's a massive fraud and a huge deception which takes place at birth. The governments make us register children when we're born. And what actually happens in this registration process is not actually registering a child for birth. You fill in the application, the governments make it illegal not to do this as well. So they're actually tyrannically oppressing us or making them do something which we don't necessarily need to do. When we receive our birth certificate is not a birth certificate registered to us. Our birth certificate is a PLC registration. This means that when we link ourselves to the birth certificate, which is printed, capital letters, black, Gary Michael Peachy, mine says, I'm not Gary Michael Peachy, I'm Gary Michael of the family Peachy. When I was born, this is who I was brought into the world for. The birth certificate is created so you can live in the legal system. And the legal system has been created simply to take money off us at every possible opportunity and to control us. Created by powers beyond the government, created by powers beyond the deep state. This has been going on. The research that I've done recently traces all the way back to the family of Noah. If we look into the Bible, there's a battle between light and dark. And the information and the research and the proved evidence that I've seen very recently shows the movement of this side of the family through Iraq and Iran, what was Mesopotamia, dating back from the Sumerian times. And this need to control people stems from a row in this family, and the energy surrounding that has engulfed this world. These people became bankers and then took over our banking system and started to print money and charge us interest on something that doesn't exist. The current banking system, we know, is not backed by gold or silver. It's a fiat system which it's not worth the paper it's written on yet. They can give us the money from the banks and then charge us interest on it out of our biggest, most powerful possession, which is our energy. Every single human being is so powerful when you realise that you're a sovereign from birth, that you're crowned at birth into a common law court. We have a crown on the top of our head. It's known as the crown because of this reason, because we are all born sovereign. And we're born sovereign, we leave the womb, we are crowned sovereign, a sovereign person to our being. We are spiritual beings having physical experiences in this body. And we are the king or the queen of our vessel. Our sovereignty relates to this.
So are you saying, sorry to interrupt you, are you sort of saying that everything that's going on right now isn't just what people can see right now, sort of thing? It stems back, or the foundations of what is happening sort of stems back to years and years and years and years.
It goes to the start of the universe, really, because we're looking at the fight against light and dark. The natural form of the life on this planet is harmony. If you look at any other species in the entire world, apes, monkeys, lizards, elephants, plant life, bacteria, viruses, it's all, viruses, I'll get back to that. That's another point. It's all harmonious. But when you bring...
For it to work.
Yeah, for it to work. And we have food chains and we have ecosystems which all work in harmony. There's life and death in it all, and this happens to us. And this is the only thing that we're really certain of, life and death in this paradigm, in this dimension. When we realise how powerful we are, we actually stand higher in our sovereign court, in our sovereign being, than the law that is dictating how we live our lives at this moment. And this is every single person on the planet, including the oppressors. But the oppressors don't seem to understand this. The police are not using the common law which they swear an oath to. And if you go into a court across any of the developed world, you can speak to the judge on common law, which ranks above the legal legislative law that we have on this planet in developing countries. And really the only law of common law is... It's common sense. I will not harm anybody else. I will not take anybody else's positions. I will not cause anybody to want to cause harm to me or take my possessions. It's like most of the people live our lives like this already. Why do we need to pay people to tell us how to live our lives? We don't. And it's bullshit. It's all fake. This is the matrix that we put ourselves into. We've been lied to. Eons and eons and eons and eons to create these birth certificates. And this is all researchable. You can check common law online. You can go onto Telegram, CGCL, I think it is the group that I found yesterday. And this common law.
What was that, sorry?
I think it's on Telegram. It's an application. This is where I get a lot of my information from. It's very interesting. Connects people all over the world. I know I've gone on for longer than 3 minutes now, as well. Totally.
Well, this round's not timed. Maybe I should have timed it. I don't know, but so in a nutshell, if you had to condense that to what you believe, you sort of believe that it's been sort of orchestrated.
Absolutely. All the control mechanisms and the control systems that we've got in place at the moment, and the ability or the way that we follow the rules from the government is something that's been created over many, many years. It's not just how we follow the government, it's schooling, it's education, it's through music, it's through art, it's through culture, it's everything. It's intertwined with...
Yeah. So I suppose it's a difficult question, really, to answer. There's no black or white, so should I say?
Well, yeah, there is the black and white. There is a black and white. If you look at our society, if you don't want to be controlled and you don't want to pay taxes and you don't want to... if you have to get to an appointment, I got a speeding fine the other day. No one was on the road. I got a speeding fine. I was 5 kilometers an hour over what the speed limit was. I had to pay it. Right. But I wasn't hurting anyone. Nobody else was there. That's 50 quid out of my pocket to theirs. And this type of scenario is the government posing as the government, and they actually are robbing us. They pretend that they create rules for our benefit to help us live, but we don't need their help to help us live.
It's a strange one though, because there's some laws, like what you're saying about the speeding thing. Everyone who has a driving license is sped at some point, and if they haven't, then good for them. But it's very difficult to not speed at least once, even if it's by accident, right? So I suppose you could say something like that is a good law, right? But it shouldn't need to be there, right? Because I think I was talking to you the other day about on the back of a bleach bottle, you've got not for human consumption, right? So the fact that that's on the back of that bleach bottle sort of proves that certain types of people need that information, need to be told what to do or what not to do, because you might. I mean, if they remove that, would some people start down bleach bottles? I mean, you don't know. So
well, this is the greatest question. We try to put ourselves in other people's consciousness and see how they might react using our own reality.
Yeah, you can't
when you have these new rules, and you can't use that as a basis of an argument at all. You know, we have human rights, and if anyone takes anything away from this session today, just look into your human rights, look into common law. And you receive your freedom. When I found this, nothing happened in my life apart from this change of dimension of understanding this. And I felt so light immediately, man. It lifted my body. It elevated me. And now I can walk around in wherever I want with no mask and no fear that I'm going to get a fine, because this is a man-made law, and I don't submit myself to this law because I don't agree with it. When my parents signed me over as a child with this birth certificate, they were lied to. They were told what the birth certificate was for something else, but it was actually to say that, this person is going to adhere to these legislative laws and end up paying you a lot of money over the course of his lifetime. We take home on average about 42% of our salary, or the rest of it gets paid to the government. Yeah, and then you look into all the taxes that we've got on goods, on consumer goods as well, and all that goes to the government as well. Yeah. We end up with literally nothing. So we're in a state of perpetual slavery. All of us, whether we're in the system, whether we're out of the system or not, we in a life that revolves around the change and the transfer of this energetical piece of paper, this financial, this fiat system that we've got, which doesn't exist because it's not backed up by anything. And this is fact. But the coronavirus, for me, is one of the greatest things that has ever happened to me, because it's taught me that I can live.
We're going to brush on that later on. There's one of the other questions, so don't talk about it too much, how it's affected you yet.
It brought me to common law.
Right.
That's what it is.
Okay.
That's the be all and end all. And for me, we are all sovereign. We're all divine sovereign human beings with the ability to do what we will, what we want, when we want to do it, live in peace and love and harmony.
Thank you very much for that, Peachy. That was a very explained answer, should I say. Moving on to Dave Butler. How are you, mate? Are you all right?
All right, that's bad.
Are you ready to follow
that? You've raised some very good
so
points around control and which is what's on the tip of most people's tongue when we mention the word COVID.
So can I just ask you the question as well then, just in case I need to chop this up. What do you believe, and why should people believe in what you're saying?
Right. First of all, I can argue both sides of. I can see both sides of the COVID argument. When Ian brought up about its origins in China, there was certain speculation that the Americans brought it over on some exercise, and then you had the bat theory, and then of course there was more speculation when the Chinese refused to let the World Health Organization come and investigate the Wuhan Center, and wanted to remain a closed shop. As soon as somebody says we don't want you to investigate, then there's automatically an assumption there's something to hide. So you could see the difficulties straight away with the world's belief, or the world's expectation of how this derived, whether it was natural or man-made. Peachy also raised some good points about the very start of our lives and how we come to conform to society's control, and
which a lot of people don't know about as well. Most people don't know about a lot of the points that Peacharoo mentioned as well, with the whole birth certificate and what it means and stuff.
We're all controlled to it. There's very few indigenous tribes and things like that where you can literally opt out of the big picture of society and the Rothschilds and the 1% and how we're all controlled by over the all-seeing eye and all these different conspiracy theories, that many of them have an element of truth about them. So as far as I can see, the Americans, if we're going to blame the Spanish for the Chinese for the COVID virus, then shouldn't we be blaming the Americans and reaping compensation from them for the Spanish flu 100 years back, which was far more devastating, because obviously we were in the scenario in 1917 where we had many American troops coming over to Europe. So yes, 100 years later, we can all fly, we can all travel so much more, we can all interact on a worldwide basis that even then we couldn't see, or wasn't in the same proportion as. So yeah, we've got this worldwide virus that has affected all of us, whether in our health, whether in our mental health, whether in our recognition of the desperate measures adopted by different political parties in every country, or different governments. And I will say this, that I really do respect the incredibly difficult decision that the governments have got to make, because they're never going to please all the people all the time, but they have to be seen to act. Because the countries like Brazil and initially America that didn't act, they have had a result that is so much different compared to the many people who say lockdown doesn't work. You only have to look at a country like China, where they do as they're told. Their control is far more than what we would normally expect from a Western civilization, but it reduced the tight lockdown. Certainly did work, and in New Zealand as well, and some other places that have said, okay, we're going to batten down the hatches, and it worked for them. But every country is different, and different rules and different ways to respond to the virus have had different effects, because we can all argue Sweden's case. We can all argue that the few brave countries that it's built into their nature to be distant, Iceland, and they're not cuddly like us Mediterraneans and tactile. They're quite distant people, and it worked for them. What their government installed for them worked for them. Other places like Argentina, where I've just spent the longest lockdown in the world, has just simply seen cases, as soon as the lockdown had ended, and they just couldn't contain it 5-6 months later because the economy was already in dire straits, then you end up simply with this escalation that was contained in Buenos Aires and then spread out massively to all the provinces. And now you look at Argentina's figures, there's the toughest lockdown in the world, 6th in the league of cases.
What do you think that's why?
A million cases they have now.
Is that so? Do you think that's because everyone came out at the end, sort of thing?
There was a gradual opening. There was gradual opening of things. So there would be certain shops. I mean, you still can't walk into a bar in anywhere in Argentina because of the lockdowns they've had to reimpose.
Yeah.
So you can't walk into a bar. You'd have to. They did have it so that you can sit outside about 2-3 weeks before I left.
Right.
But basically, the majority of the shops had to be necessary shops to be open, ferreterias and things like this. But there's still, you can't travel from one province to another. But obviously, people do for their work, so they're spreading the virus, and now it's all over the country. Population of 45 million with 1 million cases. So everyone praising the government for their strict and strong stance in the beginning has all gone to show that it's going to be there for some time, and maybe it's time we got to live with it.
Thank you very much for that, Dave. So we've got 3 interesting points there. Am I correct in saying maybe you, Ian, would a sort of I don't like to use on the fence, but you sort of see points from both sides, sort of thing.
Sorry, forgot about my mic.
Just really briefly. This.
No, I mean definitely, yeah. I think that's a sensible way to look at things. If something isn't particularly clear.
Yeah, and would you say that you're a similar view? Really quickly.
It's about balance. It has to be about balance in the end.
I've written exactly that.
It's an ever-changing story. We're learning more as we know a lot more now than we did a year ago, and as I say, incredibly difficult for any government to get it right. But people criticise the UK for locking down late, and yet I've just proved it with Argentina. Timing wasn't the issue. It wasn't too late. Better that the economy was going again relatively fast than the consequences of an economy being collapsed for years and years and years.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And just really briefly, Peacharoo, or Gary, as I know now.
Oh shit!
Just really briefly, you would say you swinging towards it being orchestrated and controlled, rather than you're quite, should I say, adamant with you.
I have received and understood a lot of evidence and seen a lot of proof that this is man-made.
Right.
When it comes out into the public, exactly who made it and why and for what reasons, then everyone will know the same. But my major concern is what's happened since the outbreak. And as Dave's just said, like, the lockdowns don't work. It doesn't matter what you do, because like evidence that I found last night, which is to do with the biomechanics of a virus, which was only studied in 2015.
Have you only just learned about viruses?
Yeah, totally. I mean, like I say, the coronavirus has given me an opportunity to sit still and to do some research, look at myself, to look at who I am as a human being, and to understand what's going on in the world. So I'm very grateful for it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I had an understanding of viruses, and up until last night, when I saw this new information, then my opinion of viruses was one way. But now the new information which has been released is kind of makes you think a little bit differently.
Yeah.